guess one of the surprise moves in the January transfer window, not many people expected this. Dele Alli, we expected him to maybe go out on loan and maybe leave Spurs. I don't think anyone thought about the Spurs-Everton connection there, and Dele Alli now finds himself as an Everton player. And look, good luck to him. Only 25 years of age, 26 in April. He needs this move, and I hope it goes well for him. Let's welcome in Callum Snell from the Toffee Blues podcast. Callum, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very, very much. Let's start with that one, Callum. Dele Alli. I've been sort of talking to my producer, Jeremy Fulham, where does he even play for this Everton side? I mean, is it Demarai Gray should be scared? Should it be Doucouré, Gomez in that midfield? Where do you think he fits in?
Well, yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me. I think the most obvious thing about this Everton side was we were lacking quite a lot in that area. You know, a lot of creative outlets we've seen have left the club over the last 12 months or so. Yeah. And we were really sort of lacking in that area. So it's no real shock that this sort of move has been made to bring in a player like Dele Alli, because we know what he can do. We've seen it so many times in the past, but it's just a question of whether he can produce it for Everton. And just to go back to your question, who misses out? I think it's more of a case of maybe moulding the team in a different sort of way. I think, you can't drop players like Demarai Gray at the minute for us. You can't drop players even like, it goes far to say, Anthony Gordon, because, they've been the most of where our attacking threat's coming from, given it's been quite limited. But, the addition of Dele Alli, it does excite me, because we've seen that players who have been so-called dead and buried in the past, like Demarai Gray, the same sort of questions were asked of him when he came to the club. So now that we've got Dele Alli coming back, it's a great opportunity for him to really show what he can do.
Yeah, and you think with Ali as well, it's more mental than physical, isn't it? I mean, there's not been much of an injury history there. He is only 25, as I mentioned. And look, people will go back and talk about what he did was a few years ago, but we know it's there. It's there. For some reason, it's not been able to come out in the last couple of years. But with Frank there now, and that comparison between him and Frank Lampard, and there's always those comparisons between the two, you're hoping Frank can get out the best in him.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that the appointment of Frank Lampard played a massive role in Dele Alli coming to the club. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels between the two. And, Dele Alli's made no secret in the past that, Frank Lampard was somewhat of an idol of Dele's in the past. So for him to now link up with Frank Lampard and work with him, fingers crossed that he can get the best out of him and we can see the player that we all know Dele Alli can be on his day.
Can we talk about the Frank appointment? It almost, in the end, seemed like it came between a straight shootout between whether you give it to Big Dunk until the end of the season, Vitor Pereira, Everton fans didn't seem happy with that, and Frank Lampard. So out of that three, Frank's probably the correct choice. But in general, do you think he's the correct choice for Everton?
I do, yeah. I think the options weren't vast, I think it's fair to say. When we did sack Benitez, there was a lot of calls for Ferguson to take it to the end of the season, and I could understand why, but I think just the position that we're in right now, we can't afford to take too much of a gamble. I mean, I'm not saying Frank Lampard's not a gamble, of course it is, but, just something about Lampard just appeals to myself and a lot of Evertonians right now. Everyone goes on and on about how Everton have tried everything. They've tried, Sam Allardyce, the big names in Ancelotti, Marco Silva, a young foreign manager. But, you look at Frank Lampard, he's young, he's English, he knows the league inside out. He's one of the most successful players in the division during his time. He's a generational talent. He's won it all. So I think it's really important that we remember that he'll command respect off the players. I think he'll get that respect. And he's a winner more than anything else. And, a name like Frank Lampard does excite. And, you just have to look at some of the moves that were made on transfer deadline day, and I think that it supports that. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, Donny van der Beek is the other one that's come in as well, alongside Dele Alli. And look, again, almost a bit like Dele Alli, we know there's a good player there because it's the reason Man United paid big money for him from Ajax. Hopefully, he gets to play a bit more minutes and then we can see why. And he wants to force his way back into the Dutch squad as well, why he is or was touted as one of the best young players in Europe. Surely Frank looks at the team and thinks that there's a lot of talent here. Like, for me, it's inexcusable for Everton to be where they are. When I look at and look, I know Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been out for a lot this season, but Demarai Gray, Townsend, Ben Godfrey, Yeremina's been a problem. If you can keep him fit, he's a good centre-back. Mason Holgate, you've got the number one England goalkeeper in between the sticks as well. There's enough talent there to get them away from the relegation zone, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the individuals, you reeled off some of the names there. I don't really want to say we shouldn't be where we are, because I feel like we absolutely do deserve to be there, because the performances this season have been unacceptable. But you're right, some of the names you go through and, you just think these players shouldn't be where they are, if we're being totally honest. But I think a lot of that's down to the dreadful car crash appointment that was Rafa Benitez. It just completely divided the fans, the players. There was all kinds of, upset coming out of the club. And the best thing to happen was for Benitez to be removed from his position. And now that, Lampard's come in, it's a breath of fresh air. It's a whole new backroom staff. And you just hope that the players can, just get that bit of confidence from this move, and we can really start pulling up the table now.
Yeah, I saw that image of that backroom staff, and people like Joe Edwards is there. He wants to get Ashley Cole on board. Big Dunk was in the photo as well, and there has been a lot of talk about maybe Duncan Ferguson stepping aside completely and maybe going his own course and, getting his managerial stripes somewhere else. Are you surprised that he's still sort of within that backroom staff? I mean, did he need to be that connection between sort of the club and Frank? Or do you think we maybe need to see a full split here?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I am surprised. I feel like the general consensus was that this was the perfect opportunity for Duncan to, now say, he's given X amount of years of service to the club, and it's the perfect time for him now that we're under this whole sort of revitalisation to try and get everyone in a new sort of.
I think we
and get his own sort of managerial role somewhere. There was talk of the Sunderland job. But yeah, it does surprise me because I feel like Duncan's made no secret that he does want to one day become the manager, whenever that may be further down the line. But he does need to go and do it elsewhere himself, whether that be in the Scottish Premier League, whether that be in the Championship League One, wherever it may be. I feel like it would be good for him. But I'm not gonna sort of turn my nose up at the fact that he is still here, because he lives and breathes Everton Football Club, and he's going to keep the characteristics of an Everton player. He's going to drill that into the ones who are already here, and he's got a great relationship with a lot of those players as well. Let's not forget. So it's not a bad thing that he's still around, but for Duncan Ferguson personally, if he really wanted to, sort of get out there and make a name for himself, it would have made a lot of sense for him to maybe move on.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Last point, Callum, really appreciate you coming on here. A couple of big games coming up for Frank. It starts hard, doesn't it, immediately? Obviously got Brentford in the cup, but it's that Newcastle game after that's a massive one now. Newcastle obviously spent a lot of money in the transfer window. We'll be hoping to get out the relegation places. We'll be hoping to drag you back in. It's almost, you don't want to say must win early, but you can't drop points in these kind of games, can you?
No, it's a real, it's cliche, but it is a big 6-pointer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Newcastle, they'll be, we go on about Everton's confidence that we've got from our signings, the new manager, but let's not forget Newcastle have made a lot of moves of their own, and they'll be really looking, the home fans at St James's Park will be right behind their team. I wouldn't expect any less, and it's going to be a really difficult game for Everton. What I would say is that we obviously have a great opportunity this coming weekend in the FA Cup against Brentford.
Yep.
Before we go into that league fixture, that vital league fixture, it's a great opportunity against Brentford in the Cup to, get a winning start under Frank Lampard's tenure and, really start to get that confidence back. And if we can take that into the upcoming games against Newcastle and Leeds, and if we can get as many points as possible, then hopefully we can start looking up to a more successful end to the season, because, God, we do need it.
Yeah, you certainly do. Callum, really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you very, very much. Callum Snell there from the Toffees Blues podcast.